Hello, everybody. Good day, good morning, good evening, good night, good everything. My name is Jason Weiss, and we are here at the Ask Jason Weiss show. So, as you know, I am an attorney. I am also a coach, a consultant, a mediator, a coffee grower and grinder, and lots of other things. But I am an attorney. So I do need to put this disclaimer out there that anything that is discussed today is not considered attorney-client privilege. You are not getting legal advice here. We are just talking about hypotheticals and ideas and things. So nothing is legal advice. Should you seek legal or financial advice, consult an attorney directly. Today, it's doubly true because I also have with me on the show Jonathan Steele. Jonathan is a family law attorney who is passionate about cybersecurity and protecting yourself, which very well intertwines into the family law arena. So, Jonathan, you are based out of where in the United States?
I'm in Chicago.
Okay, so Jonathan is in Chicago practicing law there, family law and cybersecurity. So he is at a firm called Beermann Law, Beermann, or Beermann LLP. So, Jonathan, tell us a little bit about family law in Illinois.
Okay, first, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your show. I've been doing family law for a little over a decade at this point. Every case is different, so it's always some sort of excitement and very emotionally charged. So, it keeps it interesting.
It's funny because people say to me, what kind of area of law do you do, Jason? And I'll be like, I don't do family, which is also criminal. So I don't do family. I don't do criminal. So that's my story. And I lost Jonathan. So it looks like he didn't like my joke. Hopefully he will be joining us back in. But we will talk with cybersecurity and Jonathan Steele. There he is. He's back. So Jonathan, you didn't hear I told the audience you probably didn't like my joke that family law and criminal law overlap. So I won't do either one. So that's great. Do you only practice in the state of Illinois, or are you authorized to practice elsewhere?
I'm only licensed in Illinois. I have done pro hoc vici or limited practice in other states, but primarily I'm in Illinois.
And for those listeners that aren't in the law field, the laws will vary from every single state and also every type of case. I was actually speaking with a family law attorney down here in South Florida yesterday, and she was telling me about how the family law case would progress. And I'm like, yeah, you lost me at family law. I don't even mess with that stuff. You go ahead, you do your thing. Just please send me a copy of the order when it's all over. And she was cracking up. And that's one of the things, like when you go to a mechanic and, you want to make sure they service your type of car. When you go to a doctor, you want to make sure that if your hand hurts, you're seeing a hand doctor, you're not seeing a general practitioner. So my advice to all the listeners is, if you have anything in the family law arena, don't go to your normal general practitioner like me. Go to somebody who, can you say in Illinois, specializes?
No,
great.
We're not allowed to say specialized for whatever reason. We can say we're experienced in family law, but specialties is reserved for very few practices, and that's not family law.
Yeah. So we would say like focusing on or concentrating on.
Yeah.
So tell us, so what kind of family law matters, issues, cases, do you practice in the most?
Yeah, we're sort of the black sheep of the legal field, divorce lawyers. But the reality is to do a divorce, you touch on all sorts of areas of law. That's real estate, corporate law, tax law, oftentimes criminal law. But, within family law, that's divorce, it's paternity, it's prenups, it's postnups, it's orders of protection, it's stalking orders. So there's a variety of things in there, but the bulk of it tends to be divorce.
Now, you talked about stalking and injunctions and all of that. Is that something that falls into the criminal courts, or is that something that they can handle in family, or is that where they intersect and you wear your criminal lawyer hat and then you turn it around and you wear your family lawyer hat?
You can get orders of protection in criminal cases, but you can also get them in civil cases. So normally when we are involved, it's in the civil court.
Now, when you say we, do you have partners, colleagues, people that you work with at the firm?
Yeah, we are about 50 or so lawyers here at Beermann that do exclusively family law.
Wow, that's a huge firm for only family law. And is Beermann only in Illinois?
We're in Illinois. We do have, as a result of COVID, we've got a couple people scattered across the country. We even have someone in Canada, and we have a couple offices in Illinois, but our practice is Illinois based.
So you mentioned COVID. How has COVID positively, negatively impacted family law in general? And I'll ask more specific questions because I have some in mind, but I'm just curious because I don't want to put you down a path. I want you to go down the path you want. But how do you think it's impacted the family law arena as a whole?
So, a couple things come to mind. One is that, for low to medium income brackets, you saw divorce rates skyrocket. And I think that was the result of, small living quarters and people being home on top of each other. The higher income brackets didn't see a huge spike in divorce. And I think that's because you had a little bit more space to spread out. You weren't on top of each other. Maybe you had two homes. So that was one in terms of like the prevalence of divorce. The other impact that I've seen is just the Zoom age and the efficiency that comes along with that. I can hop on Zoom and be in Collier County of Illinois without having to bill a client 3 hours for travel. Instead, I'm billing 10, 15 minutes. So it makes me more efficient, and it certainly keeps costs down for clients.
What about in the domestic violence and child custody arena? Have you seen that impacted post COVID?
I haven't seen a ton of impact on like the child custody portion of it. In Illinois, that's allocation of parental responsibilities. Same issue, just different name. As far as orders of protection go, I think those have increased in prevalence, and I think it goes along with the reasoning behind the divorces, the divorce rate increasing, that just people are living on top of each other. And if you're incompatible, that's being amplified by the fact that you're both home all the time, whereas before one of you may have been at work.
Yeah, I thankful. I mean, during the height of COVID, my kids were in school virtually. We were all working at home virtually. Thankfully, we had a large enough place that my son had a room, my daughter had a room, my wife had a spot, I had a spot. So everybody, but living in a smaller quarters, I don't know how some people do it, and I give them great credit for that. And you mentioned that you're able to be more efficient by not needing to go to a court 3 hours away and all of that. Do you think that the judges are sensitive to that, and they're paying attention a little bit more, and they're being a little more focused when they get into court? I've noticed that in the civil arena, that judges are actually, and not as a knock to judges for any judge that's listening, but they have the time now to actually sit and read things before they get to court, unlike when it used to be that you would just show up in the courtroom and they're scrambling to see what's going on. So I guess the poorly asked question by me is, do you think the judges are more engaged now that we're in this, new form of technology?
It's a mixed bag. It's judge dependent. So some judges are doing a great job with the Zoom age and some aren't. And the ones that aren't, you hop on Zoom and there are 65 people in the Zoom room, or there are 65 people in the waiting room. And so you still sit there and wait 90 minutes before your case is called. The ones that have adapted and they are more efficient, you hop on and it's just you and your opponent because they've set up their calendar in a way that makes sense. Is it causing them to do more reading? preparation? I don't think so. There are judges that read, there are judges that prepare, and there are judges that don't. And Zoom or not, that seems to be the case.
And do you think that the judges pay more attention or less attention just being on Zoom? No specific judge for all you judges that are listening, but in general, I've seen it at state court, federal court, county court. I practice in all three. Not family law at all, but I've noticed that sometimes you could see like a judge wandering a little bit or get distracted or lose a train of thought because we got so many things going on, right? Even when we're on this, all my phones are off, but one still rang and an email popped. And so do you think, have you witnessed that yourself?
I haven't really noticed, a judge getting more distracted than usual. And, you'll notice I'm being careful in my words there. Judges are distracted anyway. But I've noticed that some struggle with certain kinds of hearings. So if it's an evidentiary hearing, that can be harder, especially for some of the older judges in terms of like exhibit sharing and screen sharing. They're struggling with the technology piece there. Whereas in the old days, you're walking up and you're handing a piece of paper and they can focus easier on that. So some of them struggle with the mechanics of an evidentiary hearing. But outside of that, it's pretty similar.
I also find that in the evidentiary hearings that they are Zoom on the civil side, it's a little bit, the emotion of your client is sometimes not being able to be seen by the judge, right? I mean, and you're in a very emotional and personal, situation, having to deal with divorce or something with a child or custody or something like that. That's important stuff, not over, who breached the lease and what's going on. And I think some of it is lost. I think that touching, that feeling, that seeing the person, seeing them shake, seeing the tears, I think some of that's lost. So do you still have the option certain days and times to go in person, or are you completely remote?
Normally now, if it's evidentiary, the judges will have you come in person. And you're absolutely right that the judges lose something over Zoom and the lawyers lose something over Zoom. As a trial lawyer, you've learned to read body language. You've learned to watch, a witness that crosses their arms on the witness stand. Maybe they're being defensive. And if you're trying that case over Zoom, you're probably just seeing someone's head. So you're not seeing the defensive body language. You're not seeing really if they have notes in front of them, if there's somebody else in the room with them. So a lot is being lost over Zoom, which I think is why judges are leaning towards in person for evidentiary hearings.
Yeah, I didn't think about how does the court, at least in Illinois, do they ask the people like, I only see you when you only see me, and I could say to all the audience and listeners that I'm here all by myself, which I believe, nope, that's a fib. I'm here with just my dog, so the two of us are here. And if you were to say, yeah, I'm here, but you have four people on the other side of the room, I would never know. So do the judges, as part of like swearing in, do they ask questions, or they say, can you turn your camera around?
There's one judge I can think of that does that says, do a little 360 with your camera, show me that there's nobody in the room, and then tell me if somebody walks into the room. But that's a minority. It's one judge out of all of them. And how if somebody was out of the room for that part and then walked into the room, it's almost impossible unless you're constantly doing that 360. So it's sort of like on the honor system, I think.
It was pretty interesting. And I don't remember what test it was, if it was either the SSAT or the SAT that my son took virtually. And he had to, like, at various different points, like, take a phone and show it. And the screen was locked. And I mean, they had it down where I think my son got like a minor red flag because like he opened the door to let some air in, and they're like, oh, there, you opened the door, did somebody walk in? And he had to re-show everything. He's like, no, it just got hot in the room. So it's that, especially what you're dealing with is so sensitive, right? It's again, it's not like you're fighting over whose whose lease language controls or was rent late one day. I mean, you're talking about two people that can't live together for whatever reason, or someone could be the victim of some sort of physical abuse, or dealing with where does a child go, which the only thing I remember from family law when I took it in law school is the best interest of the child. So for those listeners that are not lawyers and don't know anything about family law, what is that standard? The best interest of the child.
Yeah, so in theory and usually in practice, the judges do prioritize that above all else. They don't really care about the parents and what they want. It's more what's best for the child. And oftentimes the court will appoint what's called a guardian ad litem, which often is a lawyer that does an investigation and then reports back to the court and says, here's my recommendations as far as parenting time and decision making, and hopefully those recommendations align with what they think is best for the child.
And who pays for a guardian ad litem?
It's usually split between the parties. The courts like both parties to have skin in the game, so that it's rare that one side will pay for all of the fees. And it's usually split, whether it's 50-50, 60-40. Usually it's proportionate to income, but it's the parties that are paying for it.
So the court can appoint it, but the court will say, we're appointing Mary as the guardian ad litem. Mary says her rate is $300 an hour, so Mary will get paid $150. Other exceptions to that, where sometimes the hardship, or there's no money, or something along those lines. So the court take that into consideration.
Yeah. So sometimes the court will say, I want to appoint Mary. Mary's hourly rate is $500, but these parties can't afford that. So I'm sorry, Mary, but I'm fixing your hourly rate at $200 for this specific case, and I'm appointing you at that hourly rate. So sometimes they do that.
And Mary says, "Oh darn, okay, thank you, Judge, and I'll take it anyway." So that's good. And again, I think family law as a whole takes a special person to do it. I admit I assist right out of law school. My first job, I assisted my boss with one or two family law related matters for people that worked at the firm, and I couldn't take it. I had less stress dealing with a gentleman who was on death row and dealing with that than family law. So it wasn't for me. But again, people do it, and it's needed. And one of the things that you and I are gonna take a break in a minute or two, because we're gonna have a commercial. But one of the things that intrigued when we first were introduced to each other had to do with cybersecurity. And then I found out that your primary practice was family law, and I'm scratching my head saying, what kind of overlap is there? But I think now, as we're talking more and more, I'm thinking about documents and things and all of that. So I'm gonna ask you to share, with our listeners, a lot more about cybersecurity and how it impacts what you're doing. Simple as logging into a Zoom, who's in the room, who has access to it. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna break real quick. We'll go to a commercial. Silverio or Cece will post it for us, and then we'll be back and we'll talk about cybersecurity in general, and cybersecurity in the law, and improvements that have been made, and things that we can hope for. So everybody stay tuned, because the fun part, the passionate part of the show is coming up any second now. So thank you, and hang on. Hang on. I am Jason Weiss. I am here on the Ask Jason Weiss show, and I'm here with Jonathan Steele, but for some reason I lost the page where I can see myself. There we go. Sorry about that. I am back. You have two lawyers with you here today, so double disclaimer. Nothing we say is legal advice. You haven't hired us. You have no attorney-client privilege, and anything we're talking about is hypothetical in general. So Jonathan, before the break, was talking about family law and changes because, we got to roll with the punches and do all of that. But every time we have change for the better or for the worse, we also have things that come from it. So one of the things that Jonathan was talking about was that we are more of a technologically based society in the legal profession. We attend trials, hearings, motion calendars, all of that kind of good stuff via Zoom, by electronic communication. And with that comes the risk. And the risk is going to be, oh my God, my information is out there. What do I do? So the goal by everybody would be to be preventive and not reactive. And Jonathan has a passion for cybersecurity and being cyber secure. So let's just jump right into that. Where did you find this passion, and what has this passion led you to, start with?
Yeah, I've been interested in privacy for a long time. I've always shied away from big tech, Gmail, SMS, things like that, and in favor of more private options like Signal, Proton Mail, things like that. And during COVID, when our court system shut down, that left us with some free time as lawyers. It took a little while for our court system to reboot, get back onto Zoom. So that gave me some time to explore other things. What I chose to explore was cybersecurity. So I started listening to podcasts and watching YouTube and reading about it and researching, and eventually took a certification course. And it just, it sort of snowballed. It's a rabbit hole that it seems like there's no bottom to. And then I just started to notice more and more overlap between that passion and what I do professionally. There's a significant overlap between family law and cybersecurity.
And so in your practice, how do you keep your information secure?
I'm pretty strict about the way that I conduct exchanges with clients. I will encourage, if not demand, that my clients use Signal to communicate with me, whether that's for audio calls, video calls, or basic, text messaging. I'll push them onto Signal, and there's a tiny bit of friction on the front end, and some clients are resistant, but they eventually find their way on there, and then it's seamless. So that's one way that my practice is a little bit different than other people's. And another way is, I will not send or receive emails with attachments. I will only use, expiring links because, a client's inbox has a tendency to become just a treasure trove of information for their spouse if there's just, a mountain of attachments, and whether that's tax returns or bank statements that need to be sent back and forth over the course of a case. It's much cleaner to have a link that expires, that requires them to authenticate, to download, or to upload. And there are clients that are resistant to that. It's one extra step, but it's for their own good.
And admittedly, I'd never heard of Signal, so I just Googled it real quick just to see what it is. And it's a messenger. It says that it's a free app that lets you call, chat, and share media with end-to-end encryption. So a couple of weeks ago, I had a guest on the show. For those listeners that listen regularly, it was Gabe Keating, who works for a company called Send Safely. And that's something that they do, and it's really neat. I started using Send Safely because not only because of the encryption and the end-to-end and the link, and you can set the expiration and how long it lasts, but it also allowed me to send larger documents, where if I wanted to send something to a client that's on Gmail or at I think one of the MAC accounts, you're limited. Yahoo too. This way, I was able to send anything to anybody out there, regardless if they had a send safely account or not. And they were getting hundreds and thousands of documents and pages in one email. So it's also an efficiency thing. So not only A, are you protecting people's information, but B, you're also being more efficient, where you could probably send a lot more. So yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
No, you're right. It's a security thing, but it's also a size thing. So emails traditionally have a max attachment of 25 megabytes or so. And in a divorce case, you might be asking someone for 2 years of bank statements and tax returns and things, and the size on that can add up. And sometimes you're sending evidence or videos and things like that, and videos can be huge. And so these expiring links, they often have an attachment size that can be 20 gigabytes as opposed to 25 megabytes. So it's much easier, instead of having 100 back-to-back emails, to just have one link.
And I also think it's convenient for the court, right? I mean, I'm assuming most of your practice is, judge involved and all of that. It's convenient for the court, right? The judge will like to just click that one button so that she can see, everything is right here, all the documents, everything. So
judges won't do it.
Really?
For whatever reason, I think that the county here tells them don't click links. It's a result of phishing, and they're not good about their own cybersecurity, so they're the one exception. I cannot get judges to click links, and so if we're sending something that is confidential that we wouldn't want to send over email, we'll drop off paper copies because they refuse to use links.
Yeah, I've handled some federal cases in the civil arena in Illinois, a little pre-COVID, and there was one judge that would basically say that if you file something electronically, thank you, and you have 1 business day to send me a hard copy of whatever it was. And I got in trouble because I didn't get something there in 1 business day. It was 2 or 3 business days. It was FedExed. It sat outside. This is my rule. So that's the one thing that we need to keep in mind. Cybersecurity is great. Doing the best interest of the client is great, but the lady or the gentleman wearing that black robe is still in charge, and we need to remember that.
Sure.
So where do you see cybersecurity heading, and what is the part of it that fascinates you the most?
It's just becoming more and more essential to have good cybersecurity practices, to have a good, clean posture, to have a small, clean digital footprint, particularly in a divorce case. There are global issues that people face, whether that's phishing, business email compromise, things like that. But in a divorce case, your life is on the line. Your financial stability and security, your kids' futures, everything's on the line. And so it's even more important to keep secure. And there are constant threats to people's digital well-being, so to speak. And it's an evolving trend. What interests me about it is the fact that it's constantly changing, the fact that it's a cat and mouse game. And that it's just a never-ending journey. It's not something where one day you're insecure and not private, and the next day you just flip a light switch and you're secure and private. It's a constantly evolving field.
And how do you think that AI, artificial intelligence, plays into cybersecurity as a whole?
Like most tools, there's a good use for it and there's a nefarious use for it. The good use for it is, there are advanced firewalls now that leverage AI to automate certain tasks that once upon a time would take an IT department weeks or months to analyze logs and do that kind of traffic inspection, whereas AI can do it in seconds. So that's the good use. The bad use is, during that same once upon a time, you might get a phishing email from your Nigerian prince cousin asking you to wire money immediately. And it was a pretty obvious red flag. Or you'd get an email with broken English, and that was a pretty obvious red flag. Or you'd get an email from American Express at a Gmail account, pretty obvious red flag. Nowadays, the people that would have been sending you those emails, they're putting it into ChatGPT first and saying, clean up this email. And so ChatGPT is rewriting it in a way that's much, much harder to discern that it's in fact nefarious, because it's not broken English, because it's not the Nigerian prince story. And there are few safeguards that are around AI that allow it to know I shouldn't be revising this email because it's going to be for nefarious use.
My favorite is when I get texts about once or twice a month from Wells Fargo Bank, actually, telling me that my account has been compromised and I should call this number that doesn't look like a Wells Fargo phone number to give permission for them to release. I don't think I've had a Wells Fargo account ever. So, I can always delete those things, but I do legal work for a large corporation and they've been hacked. And, now they have all of these safeguards put into place that they send out phishing tests once a week. Like all of a sudden you'll get something, please reset your password. You click the link, boom, they send you a red flag and all this, you report it and you get thumbs up and stars. So that's a good thing. Now, with regard to AI, and I don't know your background and your knowledge, there are different, I guess, versions of ChatGPT. And the two distinctions that I've found is that we have like what's called like open AI, and then like a more controlled, and I forgot what the word is, but another type of AI. My understanding is open AI is it just goes and scrapes the internet. And anything you put out there, even in ChatGPT, now gets put out into the internet and the world so that other people could do it, as opposed to like one of the paid plans or one of the higher plans where your stuff is not supposed to be shared with the outside world. Any knowledge to expand upon, my limited knowledge in that aspect?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the infancy stage still. So we're still sort of trying to figure out what you can rely on and what you can't. OpenAI is the engine and it powers a lot of different models. And there are different versions. There's Facebook has Llama, OpenAI has ChatGPT, Google has their own version. You're seeing it pop up everywhere. Every app that's on your computer probably has some version of AI in it now, whether it's Adobe Acrobat or Microsoft. Every app is now integrating AI. And at least with OpenAI, the fact that you pay for a premium subscription doesn't necessarily mean what you send to ChatGPT isn't being used to train models. So I'm a little wary about, what I'm sharing with ChatGPT if I'm using it. I certainly won't put any sort of like client confidential information in there. And then there are some services that are marketing specifically to like legal professionals, like LexisNexis is fumbling through an AI subscription and model. And
Yep.
Some of the pitch there is that we're not using your information to train our model. So go ahead and dump all of your client confidential information into this model. And, until that's tested, I'm a little suspicious anyway, whether it's LexisNexis or certainly Llama from Facebook. There are ways of going about it. You can change client names and, identifying information, and that makes it safer. But it's, people are just jumping in with both feet and they're not really sure about what they're doing and who's reading what they're sending. And so once you put it out there, it's out there.
Right. And AI, again, like if you're going to say, oh, my name is, Jason, my date of birth is da 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 da, and, my height is da da da, my weight is da da da. Well, guess what? You just put it in there. Somebody else is going to find it. So they're going to be like, all right, Jason Weiss. Oh, look at this. His birthday is this. His height is this. Because I put that information out there. And one of the things that and this is where I spend some of my practice and time is having to do with the FCC and the TCPA. TCPA is Telephone Consumer Protection Act, where if AI is being used to generate a phone call, and it seems that the way that the courts and the government is handling AI is that go ahead, use it. And Jonathan, you said it spot on. It's a great tool, right? And I tell people all the time, it's like Batman with a utility belt. AI is that utility belt. The belt by itself is going to hang on a hook, but once you put it on Batman or Batgirl, the uses of that belt are unlimited, and that's how I see AI. But the FCC, the FTC, and other agencies as well as courts are requiring that if you're now using AI, the person on the other end of the phone, the text message, the chatbot, they need to be made aware.
Yep.
And there's disclosures that they're either in effect now or they're coming into effect in January of 2025, where you must say, our services are being enhanced, supported by use of AI, and give the people the option to say, no, thank you. I don't want AI.
Right.
And think about it, right? I was chatting with somebody at a lacrosse company this morning because my son's elbow pads are ripping, and we wanted to just exchange them because we're only 6 months old, and we were absolutely chatting with a chatbot, no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, that's not surprising. And you're right that courts I've seen are now requiring citation to the model that you're using. There's standing orders in a lot of courtrooms now that they're accepting the fact that lawyers are going to use it. They're going to use it for, refining their drafting. Hopefully they're not using it for, finding case law, because as we've seen across the news, it has a tendency to just make up cases, and it does so very confidently. This is the right case, and it turns out it doesn't exist. But those standing orders just say, when you use it, you need to cite to the model that you've used, and that puts the court on notice that you're using an AI model for revisions to your writing.
And again, I think it's a phenomenal tool. I think that's the way that we're going. I've had clients that have said to me, hey, I'm having this situation with a competitor or with another or with a customer or with somebody, and I went into ChatGPT and this is the response I want to send. Can you clean it up and edit it? So and again, look, for me to start from scratch, it probably would have been an hour's worth of time. But for me to review what they provided me, 15, 20 minutes. I got back 40 minutes of my time. Client saved, half an hour of time on a bill. So it's definitely a tool. But the main point that I was trying to get across, and you helped me with that, is you got to be careful, because what you put into AI, it's not secure. It's not safe. You're basically opening up the hood of your automobile and saying, have a look. And that's what you're doing. And you're inviting it by putting that information out there. Now, not everybody knows that. They might think, oh, it's just ChatGPT. It's on my computer. Nope. So everybody just be aware. That's not what it is. Any tips that you could give the average human being like myself on how to stay vigilant, how to stay secure, how to avoid being a victim?
Just in general, or are you talking about AI? Okay, so in general,
yeah, please.
In general,
cyber.
Yeah, so in general, it can seem overwhelming because people do tend to look at it as that light switch where it's either I'm secure or I'm not secure, or I'm private or I'm not. And a lot of people look at privacy as a futile battle, that, big tech already has all my information, or they think, I'm not hiding anything, I'm not doing anything illegal, so what does it matter? But it does matter. Privacy isn't the same as anonymity. What you're doing, or secrecy, what you're doing in your bathroom isn't a secret, but you close the door because it's private. You put blinds on your house because you want privacy. And people they sort of look at it as privacy equals bad, that I'm doing something bad and therefore I'm trying to hide something. And it just, that's not what it is. And so long as people embrace that mindset, they're going to shy away from privacy respecting tools. And that's a shame. So, if I can encourage people to think outside the box and look at privacy as more about, you want to control who has access to your data, when, where, how, that's a better mindset to have. And once you have that mindset, the tools are out there. You want to use a more privacy respecting messenger like Signal. You want to use a more private web browser like Brave or Molvad. You want to use VPNs if you're on, a public Wi-Fi. You want to use maybe a little bit more privacy respecting cloud storage providers and email providers. Maybe look at Proton Mail, Proton Drive. So the tools are out there, and they're often as good or close to it as the more convenient, less private options like Gmail or Google Drive. So try them. Most of them are free. Most of them offer free versions, like Proton Mail has a free tier. And if you like it, then you can upgrade. So the tools are out there. You just have to look for them.
And like I say in my book, here's my shameful plug to myself. My book, Shit They Never Taught You in Law School. Practice makes perfect, right? How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. And so go out there. You like Gmail, you like Proton Mail, you like Signal, you like Sense. Figure it out. See what works for you, because what's going to work for Jonathan in his practice may not work for me in mine, right? I don't need to send private messages through an app and all of that, but I need secure email. So I'm going to look for something that's going to give me secure email. Jonathan might want to have it tied into a phone so he could be reached by his clients, because, if it's domestic violence or a child related thing, you got to get a hold of him. Me, if you're having a fight with your landlord, chances are you probably don't need my help right away, or TCPA call because someone called you after hours, so that's what it is. So we're almost done with time, which, we blew through this, especially the passionate part about cybersecurity. So, real quick, and usually I'll ask the hardest question of the day. I save it for last. Do you have a Netflix account?
I do.
Can I have your username and pet? No, I'm kidding. What are you watching on Netflix, and what's on your next queue to watch?
I have Netflix because it's bundled with something else. I don't even remember at this point. All these subscription services seem to bundle themselves together, whether it's like Disney, Hulu, all these things. I don't really watch a ton of Netflix. I like it because...
What are you currently watching, and what's on your next... I can't wait to watch this. That's up next.
I watched a movie last night that creeped me out. What was it? Channing Tatum. I think it was Blink Twice. That was a little unsettling. I don't know how new that is, but I watched it last night. And then as far as like TV goes, I watch the same things over and over. I'm still watching Sopranos 25 years later because it's just, I can turn my brain off when I get home from work. I know every word of every episode, and it's like a comfort blanket. So I don't watch a whole lot of new stuff.
I do the same. I watch National Treasure repeatedly. I watched Now You See Me and Now You See Me 2 again last night. I watched The Sopranos because it was on HBO. They were streaming it. And I am watching, I think it's called Fear of the Walking Dead, because I finished Walking Dead, and now they have all these other ones, and they're just brainless zombies, which is great because I want to be a brainless zombie. So, ladies, gentlemen, and everybody else watching this show, I want to thank Jonathan for being here. If you have any type of family law situation, matter, question, or whatever, find Jonathan Steele, Steele, who is in Illinois and can help you out there, and possibly some of his colleagues, if it's other states, can help out. You can email him at jsteele, Steele, at Beermann, Beermann, law.com, or check him out on the website, beermannlaw.com. If you want to chat cybersecurity, he's also a good person. You want to look at Signal, great. Send safely. everything else. And Jonathan, it was such a pleasure to have you on the show. Again, like we said before the show, love the piece of art behind you. And hang out. We're going to be, jumping off in 30 seconds. I want to also thank GoingSoloMedia.com and the GoingBoldMedia.com network. CC, Silverio, and the rest of the amazing team. Thank you all. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.